Welcome back, my little crypt keepers, to
What to Watch Now,
where we talk about what's streaming on Netflix right now. And in today's episode, we are talking about The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Season 2, Episode 4, Chapter 15, Dr. Cerberbus' House of Horror. And I gotta tell you, this is how you do a motherfucking filler episode. It was fun and silly, and it returned back to what I love about Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which is, in the first season, I loved how much they homaged, like, horror movies, like, The Exorcist, I can't think of anything else right now, but what I'm saying is, the moonlighting, kind of coming back to a Hammer horror, kind of the classics, black and white type movies. Even that moment when Ambrose has glasses that, while are modern and chic looking, kind of mimic a mad scientist glasses. And then he has the orange glow on his face. And later they metaphorically hint to that orange glow as like a haunting, like, ooh, it's what you thought you were afraid of. Maybe that vision was true. I love that kind of kooky life lesson learning type of horror, and they return back to that. In fact, I would compare this to Tales from the Crypt. The one Tales from the Crypt you should for sure check out is the one done by Stephen King. That movie, which is a collection of like short movies in one, is not only fun as hell, but will cause you the greatest amount of anxiety from the successful built up long tension, long shots, long conversations. It's like building and building and building this sense of anticipation in you that, I don't know, it's a masterful thing to watch and just fun as hell. But you will probably leave watching that movie being both incredibly stressed out, but also like bedazzled by all of it. Just say bedazzled. Anyways, this episode was all about, again, very much like Tales of the Crypt with its mini short stories in one. This all takes place at Dr. Cerberbus's, where it's a beautiful rainy day, and Hilda and her honey, they're together now. They've got the chains, they figured out all the kinks in their relationship. They're together now, are kind of hanging out, and a mysterious older woman comes into the shop. She has those like beautiful eyes that always look like they're crying. Don't you love that in a person? There's something in the way they speak, with the way their eyes are permanently watering. It kind of, I don't know, they feel more compelling. So it was a great choice in actors and just a beautiful human being. Anyways, this woman comes in and is like, hey, I'd like to get out of the way of the rain, but I don't have any money to spend in your shop, but I can trade services. If you want, I can do tarot card reading for you. But she said tarot. I don't know if it's tarot card reading or tarot, but it's always driven me nuts when people say tarot. I don't know. It probably is tarot, but like I'm gonna keep calling it tarot. Tarot? Tarot? Oh crap! Now I don't. Now I don't remember how I'm saying it. Anyways, she offers the services to two. I couldn't say two better people in a more perfectly idealized location. We've got a cute little horror shop. One of the people that works there is a witch. The owner is a sex demon. They've got an occult shop, occult section of their shop. So they, of course, are like, hell yeah, girl, set it up, set it up. Actually, fun fact, I love tarot card reading. I do it myself. If you're interested, I was thinking it would be really fun if you become a Patreon supporter today to, which it really helps out the podcast. I appreciate it so much. I thought it'd be kind of fun if I picked a couple of you guys, like maybe once a week, and I did your tarot card reading. If you're interested in that, I'd be happy to do it. It's one of those skills that I implore everyone to kind of casually pick up, because it, like, okay, so when I'm into this stuff, when I'm into like the occult, I'm into ghost stories, all this stuff, I'm a big devil's advocate. In my heart, I believe a lot of this stuff, but I'm very open-minded that it could all be phooey and very parapsychology. But I also think that there is a lot of good, even if it's not absolutely psychically accurate. So tarot cards are really interesting because when you get a reading by most tarot card readers, it will just kind of be a generalization, not because they don't want to give you the information or they are a bad tarot card reader, but rather each tarot card has so many different meanings. And not because they are lazy and can't pick one, but it just depends on your circumstance. And that also follows, tarot card reading is awesome because it can teach you how to ask the right questions, which it's not something people discuss a lot, but that's one of the greatest things you can learn as a skill in life is understanding what you need to look for and how you need to look for that thing or ask that question. So you might be asking a bad question. So like a good example of a bad question would just be like, will I meet the one? That's a kind of yes or no, and I mean, that's so relative. You might meet them in 10 years or maybe in another lifetime. Who knows? But you could say, what are the signs I will see um, when they start coming around? That would be a great example. So it'd be easier to identify the person you're looking for because they might even pop around. You might not even know it's them. So, anyways, what I'm saying is tarot card reading is awesome because when you pick out the cards, even if that isn't exactly the answer you want, there's a lot of great advice in there. A great example is, let's say you're asking some sort of financial question or something like that, and you get Two of Wands. Two of Wands is basically, if it's upturned, not reversed, if it's upturned, you might need to hear from that card that you know what you want, you've figured out what you want in life, your goal, but there's rockier sea ahead. And that's not a terrorizing warning of being worried of bad things happening, but rather it's coming from a perspective of planning. You are in the planning stages, and they're saying, make sure you have a very sound plan moving forward for anything that could go wrong, and so on and so forth, so you can make your journey as easy as possible. But if you were to have it in reverse, it could talk about the idea that you feel like you keep tripping over what you want in life. Like you have this goal and you think that you no longer are moving towards your path because you've messed up so many times. And the card reverse might be telling you, well, in fact, that's a part of the journey that you are actually, because you got this card specifically, it's letting you know you're still moving towards your goal, but these little things that felt like you were messing up were actually life lessons you needed to learn to move forward. So maybe pull back, figure out what you need to do, get better at your planning stage, but understand that that wasn't any lost time or you're further away from your goal. So do you see what I'm saying? Like a lot of really great answers and life lessons and so on and so forth. So if you're interested in that, become a Patreon supporter. I think it would be really fun to do some reading for you guys, and either way, I think you'll get something out of it. And that's why I'm saying it's a great skill to have, is because I personally love to use it for anything. I mean, you can use it to figure out a plot for creative writing. You can, for fun, work out an answer that you're just struggling with, and it just gives you a different perspective. Sometimes you can just read it as a way of just like kind of keeping some ideas about the day. It's just a fun thing to do overall. But anyways, I'm going to reveal, though, the ending. Ooh. Now, because it's important that we know who the fortune teller is and their intentions, because that's something we're going to be discussing in this podcast with the little mini stories. So it was such a fun reveal at the end that the tarot card reader wasn't just some mysterious woman that happened to be giving everybody the answers, but was in fact Lilith, aka Miss Wardwell. And she had some sinister intentions. She wanted to kind of pick the brains of Sabrina and her friends and family. But what the problem, not the problem, that's not the word I want to say. What I'm trying to say is she came across as quite sinister, but a lot of her advice she was giving was great and gave some warning that was helpful. So it kind of makes you wonder whose side she was on. I mean, like, even Theo, I'm not sure that was so sinister. I mean, we haven't gotten that far in the episodes. Who knows that it could have been a way to manipulate their viewpoint. Like I said, it's all about how you read the cards and what information you want to take from it. There's so many perspectives on each card. Someone might be giving you an answer, but you really might need to hear 2 other responses as well, because they don't truly know what you need to hear. Does that make sense? So anyway, that's why when I do tarot card reading, I give like all the information, because I'm just like, does any of this strike you more than another? I don't want to leave out anything helpful that you could use. And I feel she was preying on their, desires and wishes. But I don't know. I was left being like, wait, what was really your intention? Especially right now, Miss Wardwell, in her place in her life right now, she says she's working for the Dark Lord, but especially with her connection building with Adam, and in general, like the Dark Lord being, like, she's starting to see more and more she's not going to get what she wants. He really is an asshole. Maybe she's kind of fucking with him a little bit and kind of in a weird way helping Sabrina. Just an idea put out there. Anyways, we start off with Sabrina, and I loved the whole goofy, quirky... Again, I compared Tales of the Crypt and Twilight Zone often together. They're totally different tones and ways of telling stories, but many of them end in a goofy, like, be careful what you wish for type thing. So Sabrina is open about how she's dating a quote-unquote little bit of a bad boy. And she doesn't mind that, but ever since she's been dating him, she's been more and more walking that path, and she's a little worried, like, should she even be doing that? Is that okay? Can she basically trust the person she's with? And in her story, she sees Nick flirting with the Weird Sisters. He's kind of a dick in this, because he's like, kind of like, are you jealous? Which, okay, I'm gonna go on a bit of a rant in this one. Nothing pisses me off more than when you ask someone, could you please not see this person, or should I worry about them? Or you bring up a concern, and their response isn't straight away, I love you, I only care for you. Just complete reassurance before then answering, it's okay to ask bigger questions like, are you jealous? Do you trust me? Stuff like that. But when they right away go into the, are you jealous or do you trust me? My first thought is, why are you not answering the question, bitch? You're making it clear I shouldn't trust you because you just can't seem to put the feelings of our relationship before your strategized, manipulative answer. So she makes it clear that, he did date and basically fuck all the Weird Sisters. It makes sense that that would bother her. I mean, this is how much I have really grown to love Sabrina and how she's written. She makes it clear to him that she is unbothered by the fact that he's done any of this stuff. That she doesn't have any problem with most witches having multiple partners or being polyamorous in some way. By the way, I have yet to see any polyamorous witches on the show yet, because, fun fact, I don't know if you know about these different sexualities, just because you sleep with a lot of different people, hella does not make you polyamorous. Polyamorous is like, in a weird way, I know they're quote-unquote sisters, but I don't think they're blood-related. The Weird Sisters, if they regularly have sex with each other, you could argue they're polyamorous, because the idea is 3 or more people being a couple. They do not just fuck other people for the fuck of it. It's usually discussed. They're truly dating each other and with each other as like a little group, a little pod. So I'm just pointing that out. But the point is, she was like basically being like, you do you, boo, but like I'm making it clear what I want. And if you want to play games and be annoying, I'm not for it. And she's starting to kind of find it annoying how charming he is. Not in a like, sometimes what you liked about someone, you end up disliking later. That can happen a lot in a relationship. You go from being like, oh, I love the way they eat their food, to being like, oh, they eat their food so loud and gross. I feel it's more that she's starting to, she cannot truly trust anyone in her life. She keeps being disappointed over and over again. And while I still feel she's a quite trustful, sweet, naive witch, she is very smart and is subconsciously building those trust issues, which is understandable. Anyways, in this little scenery thing, which, by the way, it left me wondering if people actually were visually seeing that in the head or just hearing the information she was saying. I liked that kind of not fully answered, surreal experience. Anyways, in the dream with Sabrina, he puts on a show for the talent show, very much like a Harry Houdini act, which Ambrose worked with, just pointing that out. And in that time period, he's working with the various Weird Sisters, And I love all the girls are gushing over him. And I love Sabrina in the back corner just like rolling her eyes and being done with it until the very end when she offers her self to the stage. And when she goes up there, Prudence plays a mean trick and she literally goes up to the sky through the roof. She literally falls upwards. And in this crazy act, she dies at the end. She dies from being compressed by the altitude of space while all the girls laugh. And honestly, as much as I love Prudence most of the time, when she wants to be sneaky and evil and you never know when she's going to turn on a dime, I think she's a very underrated evil character. I really personally like her a lot, and when she's on your team, she's such a fun character, and I wish she would stay on the good side most of the time. I hate this back and forth, but because she's so emotional and she still always has her own personal agenda at hand, you never know what will influence her to, in a moment, change her opinions and morals, and she will not discuss it with anyone, and she's very smart, crafty, and for whatever reason, people don't know how to stand up to her, and she's okay kind of just snickering in the background, hiding in the shadows. So, honestly, I'm surprised she didn't get from that dream, watch out for Prudence, she can't be trusted. Instead, this is what I'm talking about when I bring up the fact that Lilith is the fortune teller. At the very end, and she experiences this. By the way, out of all the stories, Sabrina had a pretty horrifying one, and Sabrina was the only one that was just kind of like unbothered because of how much grotesque shit she's seen at her time at the desecrated church and black mass and stuff like that. I mean, like, I'll keep bringing this up. She saw a witch get eaten alive. Like, holy shit, that's dark as fuck. Anyway, the Lilith, or the fortune teller, says to her that it is okay you walk the dark path as long as it's with the person, as long as he's holding your hand and you trust him and he's your person, then you're good to go. But the way she says it has a lot of connotations going on, and I want to specifically focus on this one before I kind of gloss over the others, because, okay, for a while now, they don't write things for nothing. They keep bringing up, should you trust Nick, should you trust Nick, while everyone else is given way more reasons to be untrusted, and yet no one kind of notices that those people, they go under the radar. Why would they keep bringing up in characters of why should you not trust Nick? Now, Nick, quote-unquote, guides Sabrina down the dark path. I'm kind of starting to wonder if Nick really is the devil. And he's kind of slowly coercing Sabrina. I mean, he really is the master of manipulation. It would only seem right that no one knows he's there. Or maybe Miss Warble does. And Nick is kind of like acting as the good guy amongst all this other surrounded manipulation. He's giving her what she wants. And in a way that is romantic, but let's be real, it would be an abusive relationship. I'm just putting that out there. But he really is helping her and giving her everything she wants. And I can't tell if she's basically coercing Sabrina to continue with Nick and the idea of him being the devil and kind of like guiding her, deeper down the path with the Dark Lord. Or was she being crafty and putting a little seed in Sabrina's mind and basically being like, oh yeah, if you trust him. And it starts to make Sabrina wonder why. I thought it was interesting at the very end, I'm going to bring up the end too, that Sabrina has a conversation with him and she just full on says, will you please not hang out with the weird sisters like ever? And he's, gives a bullshit response and says, don't you trust me? And she says, yes, but I don't trust them. And that's the reality of most difficult situations. It's like, I don't like it. Or like a good example is I've been in situations where like I trust my loved one and I trust that I'm not worried about any temptation being put there, but it's annoying to know that they're being flirted with because you're just like, can you stop? Can you stop being disrespectful? Fucking stop. So that's just a perspective on that matter. But then we move on to Theo. Theo has, by the way, I love that they just keep bringing up Theo. By the way, this is what I'm talking about when I say, well, I didn't mention this before, but Riverdale, really went to shit. We talk about that because it's created and written by the same person. And the characters that they hired full-time to be, full-time, I guess you could say main side gig actors, we've barely seen any of them at all, including people like Kevin. And they did kind of a weird thing on the show where, like, they'll have someone of a group that needs representation, but then they feel like they're just there to be like, look, we have someone that's gay. And you're like, yeah, but you're kind of writing them from someone who's, like, ill-informed what it's like to be gay. And do you see what I'm saying? And with Theo, I think they've done a really beautiful job having a natural transition, what that feels like, the ups and downs with dealing with your peers and coming out. I think they've done a great job representing it, and I thought they did it. And I liked how they didn't shy away from talking about it with the idea of transitioning. Transitioning is an extremely emotional subject, whether you're never able to afford it, or, you know, like, some people feel emotional about just getting, like, a nose job. Like, you might want it, but having something altered about you is really intense experience, basically. But she wants this. She doesn't feel like her. Totally understandable. She feels like she's in the wrong body. And she basically ends up stealing some potions and stuff from the Spellman family to get what she wants. And initially she does. She feels like her best self. But it turns really, and this is again why I thought of Tales of the Crypt with Stephen King. There's specifically as a story in that movie where the guy becomes like a mossy covered creature, like basically becomes part of the earth. And that's what it made me think of when she slowly became a tree. And it got dark with her having to like chop off her own arm, and she woke up and her feet were that way. And when it ended, again, I thought it was interesting where I was really confused about Miss Wardwell's intentions. She gave great advice. She said, don't steal. And, you know, you should probably seek help and do it earlier. Which makes sense, because I wonder if Theo will go to the witches for help. I mean, I'm sure they would love to help him, and they're much more educated. They would be able to not turn her into a tree. Or is that a secret way of guiding Theo in a vulnerable situation? Maybe Miss Wardwell will dress up again and be the person that manipulates her and slowly gets Theo to distrust witchcraft and magic and feel like she's being harmed and attacked along the way. I don't know, but I think that whole tone and idea of like, is she helping or is she not, again, is very Tales from the Crypt. So anyways, we're going forward, and we have Rosalind, who has an emotional experience. By the way, last episode, she went dark visioned. Unfortunately, I don't think it's coming back. That's like so sad, and I'm still continue to congratulate this show that I think it's really interesting that they don't really focus on like first kisses or even an important moment like Rosalind losing her vision. They're talking more about like general bigger themes and ideas, which I think is way more interesting. Like, they don't skirt over those important subjects, but like if this was any other CBS, CW type of like melodrama teen show, they would do nothing but be like, that would be the big punchline of the episode, focusing on and on and on with tons of filler conversation about her and her eyes. This, we get a crazy, creepy experience where she gets her eyes, she successfully gets them, and she wants to give back to the community because she feels a sense of guilt with her dad. She kind of like, we kind of got a little bit of a hint that maybe her dad isn't a good person, the way he asks for money and gets it, and she kind of worries about where that comes from, and like, who's it hurting in between? It wasn't gotten in the fairest way possible. And so she wants to give back to the community and help a blind girl. But turns out in this creepy, crazy experience, her eyes, the reason why she's blind is because they scooped him out and gave him to Rosalind. And I thought it was interesting that at the very end, she told her dad basically like, I don't want to get eye surgery. Again, was that to upset Rosalind and make her prevent her from getting something she really wants, or in a weird way, it helps her and her friends. She has a lot of experiences that are really much more beneficial to her not seeing and having the cunning, which I'm kind of getting the vibe that it's not just a side effect of having the cunning, but rather like what do I want to say? Like, she can't have the cunning without losing her vision. It's kind of having both. And that's really helpful. Then we move on to Zelda, which that one was very hard to watch because it was too many, like, I hate ASMR and I hate kissy sounds. Not your typical just like, or like a cute little couple making out, but the kind on TV where they really graphically amp up the it's almost like you're eating sauce or something gross. And as in this experience, that was turned up to 1,000, and at one point I was like, I am muting this. In this story, though, with Zelda, we get kind of a flashback to a previous plot, and this is a well-written show when they, like the Christmas episode is still technically canon in what happened. Sometimes they throw away holiday specials and create all this drama that doesn't really mean anything. And they bring up the fact that, remember, Faustus doesn't know that he had another baby, and I don't know how he would feel that it was also additionally kidnapped and given to another witch. I think he would want to still murder that baby, and Zelda made the right decision to protect the baby, but she feels in this dream scenario with the tarot card reader that she should end up finding out what happened to the baby and, end up telling Faustus, like, be honest in this situation, because she's smart. She's afraid that could come back to haunt her. But in this crazy, creepy scenario, the witch, Desmelda, ate the baby. So the baby's no longer alive, which is so sad because when Zelda gave up the baby, that was really heart-wrenching for her. She loved that baby. And Desmelda has eaten the baby. It's devastated her. And she has instead gone to the wedding and ended up seeing Faustus and Desmelda basically like hooking up. And I'm surprised Zelda didn't take from that scenario to be aware of that and the warning that it ends with, again, weirdly helpful advice from the witch, the fortune teller, but Lilith basically tells her some secrets should remain secret. That's great advice. And I wonder, Zelda didn't focus more on the idea that, like, Faustus cheated on you, honey. How you get them is how you lose them. Don't you think it would make sense in their very open, free love viewpoint he would hook up with other people? Zelda's all about sensuality and stuff like that, but she is a possessive woman and I think believes in monogamy for herself because she would take it as an insult that anyone would be with her. Like, she couldn't be the singular fulfilling purpose in their life. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm coming from her perspective. And that's basically how it ends for her. She's definitely horrified, felt like a trick was played on her, but she's not going to tell him about the baby. So we put that plot line back on the burner. Then we have Harvey, who gets the Fool. And I loved him just sitting there looking at the card, and he's like, yep, that's me. I'm like, you are Harvey, you idiot. Anyways, so Harvey gets the Fool, and he has a really cool one where he ends up going to art school, this Rhode Island art school he really wanted to go to. I loved how they're kind of getting used to certain magical aspects of their life in this scenario. That's something I really love in magical shows, and I think that's why everyone loved the original Sabrina the Teenage Witch. It was fun to see kind of somebody living their everyday life and using magic. It wasn't always this big, like, the apocalypse is going to happen kind of plot point. It was just like, oh, the person I love is struggling to get a minimum wage job. Let give him a potion that will give him confidence. So in this scenario, Harvey gets confronted by his, crew, his girl gang, and they are like, honey, go to the art school. Don't hold yourself back. And honestly, like, Harvey is becoming quite a petty boy character to me. I think that if he didn't fulfill his wishes and dreams, even though he initially seems like that's what he really wants, I think he will later hold that against Rosalind in the relationship, which is like, that's what he's like. He's very petty. And in this scenario, he ends up following his dream of going to this Rhode Island camp, which I wonder if it was RISD. I'm just wonder if it was. Anyways, he goes there and he meets his roommate, who ends up being like a crazy person and staying up all night talking to basically an unseen portal. And he ends up having this conversation with Harvey when Harvey pulls away his painting, sees all his cool horror, and when he sees the image of the Dark Lord, or what Harvey saw was like the goat man in the caves, they end up having a serious conversation. This is like a really important moment of why this is such a great filler episode, because a lot of important information is given. He ends up finding out that, I mean, I know this is just like a fake fantasy, but in my head it's a little bit canon, that there's other people that might have seen him, and that these are like holes from the earth, or where, hell or whatever, up through the earth that he can kind of travel through. I mean, I know he's a mystical being and he can travel any way he wants, but that is a way he can get up. And they talk about the idea that, and it makes me wonder if Harvey has always been kind of doing this and pursuing this. We know he loves art, but there is a chance that he truly believes that by doing art, he's somehow binding him. I'm curious what he means by that, because binding often refers to the idea of connecting them to you, so you're kind of taking them on, so to speak, and preventing them from hurting themselves and others. I don't think you would want to have the Dark Lord binded to you. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, technically he's bound to all the other witches, and that's not working out so great for them. Anyways, moving forward, unfortunately, this really gets to the roommate, and he ends up committing suicide. But we get this great end where Harvey opens up the portal door, and he sees this kind of beautiful, ambiguous nothing and everything. Because sometimes the idea of the void is really terrifying, kind of like in Get Out, just like a big, giant, empty void. And sometimes you kind of need that ambiguousness where you feel like everything's gonna crawl on you and touch you, but at the same time, there's nothing. It's so interesting when you have to get into the idea of like what's truly terrifying. I'm sure there's a lot of like influence and inspiration from just generally depression, anxiety. I mean, a lot of people again who saw Get Out said that's what it felt like for them, and I couldn't agree more. So anyways, going on, he kind of gets the. This felt more like a curse put on him or something. The way she says, "You will suffer for your art." But you need not leave home to do so. It's like, ooh, spooky. Then we have Ambrose, the last one. He's really important because I've already, up to this point, watched the next episode, and it's kind of all about him and this important plot point. So Ambrose has, when he's initially approached by the tarot card reader, he's kind of being given this loving eye by his aunt of like, oh my god, it's so exciting, a tarot card reader's in town, like, go get your tarot card read. It's fun. It's like a fun like carnival feature even for witches. And he's like, oh, okay, I'll do this for my aunt. But he's honest. He's like, my life's great. He's got a swagger about him. He's been a bit of a dick in the last couple episodes, considering how much I love Ambrose. It's hard to see him being sexist with a shitty boyfriend. And he has no questions because he names off that he is a great boyfriend. He's got this awesome life. He's got all these connections. And the fortune teller says, technically not yet. And when she tells his story, he's got such a scary one. It's got this beautiful homage to like Mad Scientist, as I said before, with his cool modern glasses mimicking lenses in a laboratory. But then with the orange tubes in between, and you're not quite sure what he's accomplishing with all the pouring of the chemicals just to make a simple steak. But then at the same note, it's scary because the idea of someone like, and let's be real, Blackwell has been successfully manipulating Ambrose up till now, just successfully twisting someone to murdering everyone in your family. That's a horrible, horrible, terrifying idea. Not just the idea of murder, but like the idea it could be someone you love, that you trusted. I think it hits that nice ground between surrealism and like a goofy homage to a horror movie and a realistic fear. And that's kind of sometimes like the best mark to hit. Because sometimes you leave watching something like that and you feel disturbed, but you don't quite know why, because it just skillfully, you like got the message in your subconscious, but you haven't quite realized it yet. But in this little twisted fantasy, he's basically told to kill his whole family, and he does. When he comes out of that, she basically, she has a last card, and she doesn't want to show it to him. And he, oh my god, did you hear me? I had a gulping breath. He gets a card, and this card haunts him and terrifies him. And later, at a pinnacle moment, it is revealed is the death card. I want to talk about the death card in one moment, but something that's important about this is he goes to Father Blackwood, kind of basically needs to have his mind reassured that he would never be asked to, kill his family. And he's like, no, of course not. He gives all these great reasons, like a true manipulator, like, oh, I'm marrying your aunt, I helped you get out of imprisonment, so on and so forth. But in reality, maybe he's using those things to his advantage because he wants to undo them in a different kind of way. Maybe it's not enough for them to die. He needs to kill them through life, so to speak. You know what I mean? Keep them alive and have them doing what he wants. But he's not really reassuring when Ambrose gets kind of very, like, unapologetically is told that the person he really loves died. Which, this sounds terrible because I do feel bad that Ambrose's boyfriend died and this is someone he really loved, he had a connection with, but I couldn't help but be like, ding dong, the witch is dead. I hate Luke. He is dead. Do 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 do. I hated Luke. He was the fucking most robotic, manipulative, evil fuck. I am convinced he killed that other witch boy. Hell no. Do not like Luke at all. So him being dead is nice for me, but in the end, evil or not, I do think he truly was a pawn to Blackwood. That being said, I still think he was evil. But he is dead, and now that's opened up an opportunity for Ambrose to join the Judas Society. Ooh, very spooky. And when he's being given this opportunity, he's haunted by the fact that the tarot card reader was right. I think that's a great note to end on. It makes you wonder if she was right about everybody else's predictions. And he finds out Luke's dead. He gets this opportunity, but he's not happy about it. And he looks at his card and he sees he has the death card. Realize that's the connection of all of it. And by the way, I just want to say this as a disclaimer in case you ever get the death card for whatever reason, just to like relieve any stresses. They use the death card in a lot of movies for the drama effect. The death card, the hanged man, that type of thing. But actually the death card is just about change. It's like the idea of rebirth. It's an incredibly positive card to get. It's not bad. It does not mean death, like in the way that people see. So if you're ever messing around with tarot cards or someone gives you the death card, please do not live in fear that anything bad's going to happen. You're going to be okay. It's a good thing. It's fine. But yeah, really fun filler episode. Really back to that horror theme that I absolutely loved and missed about the show. Lots of great information about the world building and just in general what could be or what is happening. And let's get to the next episode. I'm excited. Don't forget to subscribe and please become a Patreon supporter today. Leave a heart, all that good shit. I just want to say, guys, thank you so much for all the like nice things you guys have been sending me. Like, you don't know how much like a simple tweet or an email or anything like that means to me. I just want you to know, like, I read all the shit you guys send me and I'm just really, really appreciative. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you in the next episode because I love you in the most platonic way possible. Bye!